Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm joined today by Stephanie Mock Grubbs. And Steph, I think we have a mutual connection now that I've been interning with football at WVU. I know your kind of history with WVU, you going through that program, being involved with the athletic side of it. So I'm interested to hear about your time there. But before we get into that, maybe we could get like a life update from you, because we recorded an episode previously, and then the Power and Strength Summit, which is an online speaking conference for performance professionals, will be hosting its second ever event, January 24th and 25th. You're going to be presenting, which is awesome. I'm super excited for that. So I thought, what better way to have you on the podcast, provide an update with where you're at, changes for you, all the experience you've developed in the professional sports space. So yeah, maybe you can just kind of give us a glimpse of what's been going on the last year.
Yeah, Josh. Love the West Virginia connection. Let's go Mountaineers. I played volleyball there, so it definitely has a dear spot in my heart. And yeah, Mike Joseph's been there for a minute, so he's like
Yeah.
the legend of West Virginia. He was there when I was there, and then it's still there to this day. So he's thriving. Great mentor too. I
Yep.
think whenever I got done being an athlete and started interning with Mike Joseph, and then Daryl Bauer was there as well, and Kevin McAdams, and Corey Swine. Yeah, there were a lot of really great strength coaches when I was there. And I mean, it couldn't be where I'm at today without those mentors. So shout out to old WVU in Morgantown. Oh man, oh man. But yeah, I'm super excited about the conference coming up. I've been really passionate about microdosing strength training in season, really over the last like 5 years now, whether it's implementing it with volleyball to football to baseball. So I'll be presenting on frameworks for implementing microdosing in physical preparation. And I'll kind of lay out frameworks for 1 game a week model, 2 games a week model, and then 6 or 7 games a week model, aka my current state of the state in Major League Baseball. But I know, Josh, we had chatted when I had just kind of, or right before I started my new role, or right when I started it, somewhere in that. And now I've been through a full season of Major League Baseball, the 162 games. So that was really exciting, and I learned a lot, and just kind of saw a lot of the differences between working in college sports in the P4 level and now working in professional sports. I dipped my toe in the water doing like an apprenticeship with the Steelers, but yeah, NFL, MLB. It's been a really massive learning experience, and I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I guess, what were some of the expectations you had initially getting into professional baseball, that were then either obliterated or kind of like reinforced after you had spent a full season working with the team, working with the staff, and kind of being a part of an operation that has to span 162 regular season games? So what was that like, kind of going from like, I can kind of think about or anticipate what this is going to be like, to, oh, now I kind of get it.
Yeah, I would say just the respect I have for a Major League Baseball player, and especially like the everyday guys. So, everyday guys being like your first baseman, shortstop, second base, third base, all your outfielders. You're playing a lot of games. And I've worked with college baseball, whether I was exposed to it at Clemson or Mississippi State or around it at Pitt. So, I'd seen college baseball for a while, and just that at an elite level, whether it's ACC or SEC, but making a switch to the big leagues, and just seeing these guys perform day in and day out and playing like 6 or 7 games a week, like just Major League Baseball as a whole, you're playing a game pretty much every single day for like 7 months. So um, I think in a lot of other sports like football, you like have all week to prepare, and then you have your big game day on whether it's Saturday in college or Sunday in the NFL. But when you're being exposed to games every single day, it's just a whole different stimulus and stress. And I think I had to get used to that as the strength coach, of like every day we're showing up at the clubhouse, guys are doing their prep, you're getting the lifts in, you're warming them up on the field, they're playing catch, and then 7 p.m. rolls around and you're starting your game, and you're doing that day in and day out. So I think just that stimulus of game day, you kind of had to shift your mindset. And also the big one for me, and this is where some of the microdosing frameworks came into place, was like you're lifting on game day because every day is game day. And I think in
Mm,
college, I think back to like whenever I thought about, hey, let's try lifting on game day, let's say with like men's soccer, and you can do like an upper body lift on game day, like trying to persuade your head sport coaches to lift on game day was such a big haul back in the day. But now, like for our ecosystem and our framework, like we have to lift on game day because every day is game day. So I think I had to really shift my mindset of understanding different guys' role on the team. Like, are they an everyday guy? Are they coming off the bench and kind of managing all that? And then just the travel stress that you see in Major League Baseball. We're like home a week and then we're on the road a week and then we're back and then we're away. So again, I think I've just gained a lot of respect, even more so. Like I had a ton of respect for clearly Major League Baseball players in the past, but now just being in the big leagues, one, seeing what it takes to kind of climb up all the levels to get there. Because when you get drafted, I think people think like in the NFL, you go straight to being with
yeah.
the team and doing your thing, but Major League Baseball, you gotta, like, climb up and still make your way, so, yeah, just a lot of respect for the players, the guys, and just what they put into it and making sure I bring value to the team.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of the difference of having so many games and so much travel and knowing that in, collegiate athletics, I mean, even like high school, you're contending with class schedules and you're still contending with all the outside stuff that goes along with it. But I imagine a professional sport, sole job of someone who's on staff is performance. And that's kind of throughout the season. So what was that like, I guess, having that occupy the entire focus? Like, okay, performance, winning is the entire focus. We don't have these outside distractions, if we want to call them that, of like classes or academics or things like that.
Yeah. No, you don't have to worry about finals week and the stress
Yeah.
and them getting sleep or if they pulled an all-nighter. Um Yeah, I think it's been pretty refreshing, to be honest. You're not, like, having class conflicts and having to shift around that. Maybe you're dealing with, like, guys having interviews in the media and whatever that may be, or, like, post-game interviews, and then you wait for that to lift a guy. So, I think every ecosystem has its, like, ups and downs and pros
Mm,
and cons, but, yeah, I think it's been really nice that we can just maximize like, hey, we need on field performance to be at a high level. We need to clearly take care of nutrition, sleep, all the recovery modalities, getting it with the trainers, getting it with us in the weight room. But it's been really nice to just focus on the sport and not dealing with any of that. So, um, yeah, and clearly these guys, like, we're dealing with a different age group. Like, it's like 22 to 35 or 36. So these guys have families and wives. So they wanna drop their kids off at school in the morning or whatever it may be, so I
mm,
think, yeah, it's just you're dealing with the pros, and you need to carry yourself that way too, but college, like, clearly there's pros in the sense of you're, like, getting them fresh, who knows what their lifting background is, you're kinda setting that foundation, when you get here to the pros, like, a lot of these guys have been lifting for a long period of time, they love working on their craft and their skill, whether it's hitting and pitching and things like that, so I think sometimes you have to just make sure you're having conversations and building trust with the athletes to be like, all right,
mm.
hey, let's get lifts in on these days. This is why. And just education in the college and the pro level is so important.
Yeah. How much do you feel like your understanding or approach to kind of the training you prescribe for the guys and take them through has changed kind of before you got into this role and up to now? Like, I guess how much has your system kind of adapted to the demands of baseball, professional baseball?
Yeah. I think working in professional sports as a whole, like when you're doing programming, um, I'm having individual conversations with all the guys, and this is when I worked in like, when I was with football too in the NFL with the Steelers in the sense of you're talking with them, and a lot of time these guys know, like, "All right, what doesn't work for you? Like, what movements in the weight room create pain?" Like, they know that. What's worked for you in the past, at what times of the year, and it's very much a collaborative approach to putting together the best plan for them. And that's on field or in the weight room or the training room. It's holistic in nature. So I think in college sports, I found myself, I just like write the program. Maybe you meet with the sport coach and kind of
Mm,
discuss like when phases are going to change and when to expect soreness and things like that, or a deload. But yeah, you're always meeting with like the coaches. And now it's very much so I'm sitting down with the athlete and talking about what their individual plan is. And it's a collaboration. It's like, hey, well, I've tried this in the past, it didn't work. It's like, okay. So I think I've had to make myself be a lot more adaptable in a sense of this guy may come in and we're having a conversation and they're like, "Hey, you can't just have option A." It's like, "Okay, well, I haven't liked doing that, let's say
mm,
K-Box or something in the past. Like, can we do something else?" It's like, "Oh, we have a Kaiser pitch shark type setup. So let's do that." So I think it's made me have to be super agile in a sense of having like option A, B, C, and D, and also that goes into like we're playing half our games at home, and then we're doing playing half our games on the road in road weight rooms where there is like a set list of equipment that everyone has to provide. But sometimes maybe we have Kaiser equipment at home, but we don't have that on the road. So I could be ready to adapt on the fly and come up with a really good alternative. So I think back to all of like when all of us as strength coaches have like our progressions or regressions, it's like you gotta have like even more layers of that. So I
mm.
gain a lot of respect for just strength coaches in the MLB being able to be adaptable. And clearly I'm at the big league level. So imagine at AAA or double A or single A when they don't, we have the best equipment. And that's why you kind of work your way up, right, for these guys. But I give credit to a lot of our strength coaches just in the system that are being creative at all levels.
Yeah. And you've mentioned development quite a few times. And you mentioned a lot of the guys having a pretty significant background, being in the weight room, and having a lot of exposure to that. So when you approach it, I guess, how do you conceptualize development at that level? Like, how do you conceptualize doing something that's going to be effective and beneficial for them, helping their performance? I guess, like, how do you think through that problem of, or that task of helping the players become better athletes, more resilient, able to perform better on the field, but also like have longer careers?
Yeah. I think for our setting, because spring training, you have like your 30 games prior to getting into the end season, and you have guys fighting for a roster spot. You have guys that are pretty solidified that know they're going to be on the roster, some older guys where they can kind of train through spring training, let's say. But throughout season, you're just constantly fighting like detraining ideally, right? Because we're all the travel, all the games. Starting pitchers is probably like the best setup because you know when they're going to pitch and then you know kind of game
Mm,
day -1, -2, so on and so forth. So I think starting pitchers are probably the most similar to other sports in regards to programming, but everybody else, you're trying to find your spots in the schedule where you can it's not only like quote unquote the minimal effective dose, it's where can I push and maximize?
right.
Where's the maximal effective dose? Where are those windows? And okay, are we home for let's say multiple series in a row? So I know they're sleeping in their own beds and getting recovered and I can kind of push that stimulus versus right? We have 17 games in a row. We're on the road. Like this is probably not the window of time
Mm,
to push it. So I think for us, I've leaned into my background in sports science or performance science and trying to establish some like numbers throughout spring training testing wise. And then as we get into season, continuing to test and find those spots as well. And I think too, like you can't be married to like, all right, I'm always going to test on this day of the week and because like in the past, let's say with volleyball, I always did force plates on like Tuesday after the off day or Wednesday, whenever that fell. For us, our off days switch from sometimes we have Monday off and sometimes we have Thursdays off. So you probably don't want to test guys when we've been on the road for 10 days in a row because you already know what kind of numbers you're going to
yeah.
get and that's not going to help their mental state. So I think picking your pockets where you can maximize training and picking your pockets where you think you're going to be able to get the best reflection of readiness from the players and going from there. But yeah, trying to like audit your program throughout the season with some of the performance testing, whether it's depending on pitchers and position players, but maybe you're using the force frame for internal external rotation, jumping on the force plates as well. I know some teams do like the dynamo grip dynamometer. Um, like the isoprone hamstring test for post chain for maybe position players, but picking your tests that you know you're going to be able to do throughout the whole entire season, that are going to be consistent. And also, I mean, VBT is always clutch, and I can travel with gym
Mm,
wears all the time and just pack them in our trunks and be on the go. So um, VBT can't be overlooked. Even though sometimes all of us we like to find the new sexy toy, it's like, well, you can't overlook the stuff that works, and you can get
yeah.
feedback every single day.
Yeah, and that's it. I took a class with Dr. Hornsby, which is something along the lines of creating an annual plan and then coming up with the testing and monitoring stuff alongside that. And I actually chose baseball because I work with the high school baseball team local to Morgantown. Um, so I kind of looked through the literature and like, okay, what tests kind of made sense, what equipment. From your standpoint, you did mention a handful of the tests, but what's the battery you use, and how, I guess how would that be different per position player?
Yeah. So for us, the biggest hurdle, like there's probably like the most ideal testing, what I would do in a dream case scenario. But like I said, for us, we're on the road for, I don't know, 80 something games. So me packing a ton of sports science equipment and it possibly getting damaged like en route to the other weight room. The easy stuff we can travel with, clearly force plates we can kind of pack in a safe manner. And then also gym wear is pretty easy. Force frame and Nordborg, we usually kind of just do that when we're in home stands.
Mm,
So isoprone or internal, external or ABA deduction. Um, I think too with the vault equipment, because we use a ton of it, but great products, and you can also train on their equipment. So if you want to
mm,
train at like 70% for some different isometric testing, like we use that, or isometric holds, like we do that a lot too. So I think trying to think outside the box of don't look at the force frame or look at the Nord board as truly only testing. You can use it as a training tool as well. And I think that's kind of allowed me to build more comfortability around like when guys get on the Nord board, they're not like, oh my gosh, I have to do a Nordic. This is the worst day of my life. It's like, oh no, I'm just kind of getting on this to do some ISO holds for ISO prone and getting some post chain work in. So I think just trying to get over that hurdle of athletes getting on different testing equipment and thinking it's doomsday, or knowing like, hey, tomorrow I'm gonna be
yeah,
really sore because like we don't have time for that. So yeah, those are just some of the pieces that have been really crucial and helpful for us.
yeah. And then do a lot of I guess like the values you're looking at would be some sort of like pre-testing, post-testing, or do you look for like any like normative data where it's like typically players at this level should be able to do X, Y, and Z with this sort of protocol?
Yeah, I think for us in the pro level, like everything's very individualized. Because we have athletes that are young, like maybe they're 21. We have athletes that are like 36. So where they're at in their career, we're kind of looking at, all right, if we get a new player, what's their injury history, and if I've seen 3 hamstring pulls on the right hamstring, like clearly doing some post chain testing is going to be really important to them. But if it's a pitcher, that we've seen some different like upper extremity injuries, then we're going to kind of hone in. And for us and for me, I've tried to like it's a less is more because we
Mm,
are playing so much. And when you ask guys to test, whether it's in the pro level or the college level, like you want to make sure you're getting those testing numbers back and you're actually making some type of, you're using that objective information to have conversations with your athletic training staff, your sport coaches to be like, all right, this is where they're at. And this is college and pro. Like if you're seeing asymmetries, let's say in post chain of 10 to 14%, maybe that's a yellow flag, and then 15% and above is a red flag. Then you kind of know like, hey, this is where the athlete's at. Now I know if I need to do um, less or more. Or I think with sports science, it's been, and we call it performance science at our level, but with performance science, I think sport coaches have started to see across the board, like, oh, we're doing testing. So this always means that they're going to tell me to do less at practice. And I've really tried to cultivate a different thought process around no, sometimes if we do testing, like and I see so and so is getting detrained because he's not getting much playing time. Like maybe we need to do more top up runs and sprint work. And so I think don't always fall in the bucket of like we do a test like, oh man, I'm worried we're always going to do less because then the coaches are going to be like, I hate this stupid testing. She's always telling me
Yeah.
less, 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 less. Like I want to know when we can push, you know? And I want to know benchmarks of like, if we do have to do a return to play process, like what do I need to positionally get this athlete back
Mm,
to? So I think with performance science, figuring out like with your performance team, like your entire group, like what is the purpose of using these testing numbers and how are we going to present it to different areas, whether it is like your actual sport coaches, your performance team, maybe that report looks different. It can be a little bit more complex and you can actually show like some forced time curves, but I'm not going to take that to whatever sport coach unless they're truly really interested in that and how we're seeing it. But for us, since we're playing every day, like time is really important to all of our coaches because we're preparing for different opponents all the time. So I think for me, creating a report that's really easy to look at and make good decisions off of.
yeah. Do you have like within the organization? You mentioned calling it performance science. Do you have like other performance science staff separate from kind of strength and conditioning, or do you find that you're doing a lot of the testing and monitoring and then creating the reports and then kind of trying to integrate that within, sport coaches, athletic training?
Yeah, I would say just at the professional sport level, not even just MLB, but NFL, MLS, like you have maybe your sports science or performance science group, and then you have your player development group. So that's an area of difference between college sports. Like college sports, you don't have like a whole entire group for player development, but also in the pro sports level, like we're constantly looking at who should we draft and
Mm,
all these different like MLS MLB, NFL, like who should we call up, talent identification and things like that. So I think we push a lot more chips in that area in the pro sports space versus um, college sports. It's like your assistant coach is the recruiting coordinator and they're going around all
yeah.
these high schools and trying to like find. But like we have entire departments in the pro sports level because this is how we're gonna win. So like and winning brings in lots of money. So we definitely and the pro sports level, not just MLB, but across the board. I think that's as I've talked with other strength coaches or performance scientists like that have made the jump to the pro level. They're like, yeah, clearly your infrastructure looks a lot different. Like your quote unquote performance team, like we have massage therapists on staff, and so yeah, everything's a little bit bigger, and you have more money at this level. So yeah, I think just trying to figure out how many people you have in performance science, and we in MLB have like our whole entire organization. Clearly, I'm at the big league level, and then we have all the other
Mm,
areas all across the country and all the different teams. So we have some people positioned in West Palm Beach that are performance scientists. Me, I serve at the big league level as like strength coach, and I help with all the performance science because I travel with the team on the road, and I'm helping create reports and present that to our coaches. So we kind of have some people, and I think this is pretty normal across a lot of pro sports. But you have people just working remote and helping pump out reports and send that your way. I know in the NBA, I've heard of it a lot too. So it just depends on what works for your team. But yeah, it's definitely a complex system compared to college sports.
yeah, and it sounds like because there's so many different kind of developmental levels, single A, double A, triple A, and then obviously big leagues, there's a lot of communication between and trying to have really, I guess, like coherent integration of kind of all the working parts. So from your like personal experience, what's that been like trying to navigate integration with such a big operation, like such a comprehensive operation like that?
Yeah, I mean, I give credit to like all our coordinators. So like we have an S&C coordinator, Zach Redding. He's great, and he oversees like all the strength coaches at the minor league level. So he's like traveling, and before that it was Chris. Chris is now the baseball strength coach at LSU. So like Chris or Zach, like their ability to oversee strength coaches. Like I was used to doing that when I was at Pitt and Mississippi State for all of my strength coaches under me when I was the director, but we were all in one building. Like they're
Mm,
overseeing people that are in different states, traveling all over. So I think you're relying on like the Zooms and things like that to kind of roll out systems and processes. But the big league level, we're definitely, it's almost like I compare it a little bit to when you're working at a university and there's Olympic sports and then there's like football and basketball and they're kind of like living like you guys are all together, but you're kind of like living in your own space. It's a little bit of like that in the big league level because
mm,
everything's just like you gotta win, and we're gonna do everything we can. And I think the minor leagues, they do such a great job of like it's a little bit more of like a teaching developmental, like trying to build you up so you can get to that level and super competitive. But for us, it's even more competitive. So it's kind of like yeah, we're functioning at all cylinders all the time, and our schedule's different at the big league level. Like in the minor leagues, they get Monday off every single week, so they have more of a schedule. Like we don't have that. We can have streaks of 17 games in a row, 13 games in a row, 10 games in a row. So we don't have that same like structure. It would be nice to get every Monday off, but that's just
yeah.
yeah, not how we do it in the big leagues.
Yeah. And I think our previous podcast, we talked a lot about your journey kind of through the different schools you mentioned, Clemson, Mississippi State, Pitt, and the mentors who have kind of like supported you and influenced your trajectory along the way. Now being in the major leagues, I think a lot of people who get into performance, they think I'd love to work at a Division 1 kind of powerhouse school, or I'd love to work in the professional ranks. Um, what would be your advice? Maybe isn't the best word, but like, how would you kind of direct them to make that a possibility or reality, knowing your trajectory ultimately to get there?
Yeah, I think everyone's path looks a little bit different. Um, so it's hard with pro sports in particular because like it's not like we don't have like a bunch of interns in the weight room helping out in professional sports. It's just there's too much important information kind of
Mm,
floating around in the building to have like a bunch of extra bodies in there. It's like it's just tough, like you can't leak information. And yeah, so professional sports, like whether it's NFL, MLB, NBA, like I think that's the one thing I miss is we could have like a volunteer internship and have like 5 interns in the weight room helping out and teaching them and building them up. So I think it makes it a little bit harder to find like your insertion point of like how do I get to the professional level. So it makes it that much harder, just like the athletes. You got to be the 1% to like truly make it in
mm,
pro sports. But to get to this level, I think the one thing that helped me get to professional sports was I wasn't just like a strength coach. My resume, I tried to diversify it, and I oversaw sports science when I was at Mississippi State and at Pitt, and they liked that my background lent itself to I can be quite versatile and kind of help in multiple areas. So that helped me truly like be unique and my resume kind of stick out from
mm,
others, let's say. So I think if you have the opportunity to like develop more time working in speed development or return to play or performance science or sports science. I know like when I was at Pitt, I really enjoyed collaborating with our School of Rehab Sciences and Dr. Tim Sukamel that we had hired, like working with him and Matt Darnell that's at Exos now. If you can collaborate with the academic side, learn more about research. Our physical therapy department, when I was at Pitt, we did some research as well with Dr. Rick George that's there. And same when I was at Mississippi State, like we collaborated heavily with our engineering department with Dr. Ruben Birch. He's now at TCU, but I think the more that you can diversify your resume and get it to stand out and not just stay in your small strength and conditioning box, the more that you may have an opportunity to kind of like when I'm talking about these other departments of like talent identification and things like that, they'll be like, oh, I like that this person's kind of dabbled in these different areas from a research standpoint or background. So yeah, don't be a one trick pony. Try to work and learn more and respect other avenues and areas as well.
yeah. Was that just something you were really intentional about, trying to have a diversified skill set, continuing education, trying to constantly kind of stay one step ahead on your own craft from like an S&C standpoint, but also from like call it like a performance science or return to place, standpoint as well. Because it seems like that's like a big that's something you really value is continuing education.
Yeah, no, I think, I was lucky when I was at Clemson with Rick Franzblau, that's still there. He really honed in on us as young practitioners of, like, you have to pour into your craft, learn as much as you can, constantly push the envelope, and that man's still doing it to this very day, this minute, and I still am as well. I'm trying to learn everything that I can in regards to just performance, and yeah, now I have to be a resource to these guys. They can come up and ask me any question at any given time in the dugout or in the clubhouse. And I'm like, it could be about nutrition or recovery or testing. And because these guys have a couple bucks in their pocket, so they can afford to, like pretty much get anything that they need, to help make their career go a little bit longer. So I think it's allowed me, like I remember talking with Megan Young when I had taken the position and we were actually out there playing in Seattle, the Mariners, and she had told me, she's like, "Steph," because she works in the MLS, she's like, "Hey, Steph, when I made the jump from, like, college sports to pro sports, like, your circles of people start to kinda, like, change and mold based off of some of the problems you're trying to solve?" And I know we kinda talked offline about whether I'm reaching out to different people working in the NBA because they deal with the travel, the crazy travel
Mm,
schedules and things like that, so it's like, "All right, how are you guys finding solutions to this?" Whether you're playing on grass or turf, like maybe I'm talking with people in the NFL about, hey, what are you guys seeing? Are you seeing like an uptake in calf injuries based off like footwear and how it's interacting with the turf and whatever it may be? So I think, yeah, I've started to like still, of course, stay in contact with my core people, but also I'm constantly trying to meet new people and find solutions to problems and be a resource to the team. So, but yeah, I've always like since I was a young practitioner, being hungry to learn and grow. And to be honest, when I was at Clemson, like we invested on this sports science equipment. So as strength coaches, we were kind of forced to figure it out, because back
mm,
then in like 2013 to 2018, that's when like the field was growing and people were starting to add positions. But we were relied on heavily as the strength coaches to kind of function as both, which I'm grateful for, because that allowed me to get my foot in the door. And then as I kind of went to Mississippi State, I was like, all right, I want to build this out like this way. And I had Aaron Duval with me. He was my intern, and he did his master's at ETSU. And luckily, he was pretty savvy in the sports science space, and he's helping me out every step of the way to get things off the ground. And same thing at Pitt. So yeah, I think if you can create opportunities for yourself to learn and grow, whether you're at like a school that has a really cool like biomechanics department and you have like a pitching lab and you want to go and learn about that, like don't be afraid to thrust yourself into different environments that will challenge you and make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's okay. And then you're having conversations and asking questions. And yeah, then you end up talking with professors, which I really enjoyed, and asking questions to them. And yeah, that's the one good thing that if you're on a campus, a university, like you need to capitalize and talk to people like Guy Hornsby and things like that.
yeah. How do you navigate that now, kind of being on the opposite side of it? So you mentioned a lot of the people who you reach out to and who have supported you and who have helped kind of provide you with the skill set and the experience to get where you are now. But, in your current position, I'm sure you act kind of as a mentor to many people or have acted as a mentor to many people. Um, so how do you handle that as someone who can help influence the shape of someone's career?
Oh man. Yeah, I feel as if I I need to continue to cultivate because people did that for me coming up in the field when I was super young. And when I got into the field, I literally knew nobody except for I was luckily an athlete at West Virginia, and those guys took me under their wing and got me started with a really, really strong foundation. But yeah, I would just be emailing, cold calling, all of the above when I started in the field. And I think back to the people that took the time to talk to me on the phone, and that was even like a Megan Young,
Mm,
Donnell that used to be at the Citadel with Play now, just like helping me just get my foot in the door. Super grateful for them. But yeah, now I see myself like someone sends me an email, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I remember when I sent like 50 emails like that back in the day." And even someone, there was a young professional on LinkedIn, she sent me a video of her. She's doing
Mm,
like an internship and doing her master's degree, and she was like, "Hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you." Like, this, that, and the other. She took the time to like make a very sweet video, and have specific things she wanted to ask me about. I was like, "That's awesome. I will make sure I reach back out to her
yeah.
because she took the time to do that." So she really stood out to me. So yeah, I definitely really enjoy calling, and when people reach out to me, I really try to take the time to do that, but then also I can learn from them, you know? So I think that I never I never see it as like they're just calling me to ask questions. Like I want to make sure I'm asking them questions too because I want to see kind of where how they're coming up in the field now, how is their academic structure maybe changing, and things like that. So yeah, it always is a two-way street. I'm trying to learn from them or get a good book recommendation, all of the above.
Yeah. And we mentioned kind of the start of the podcast, the first season is in the books. And you mentioned your talk at the Power and Strength Summit on microdosing. What are some of the, I guess, besides kind of like the congestion of the schedule and the travel and kind of the differences just with professional and collegiate sport that are kind of inherent? What were some of the big takeaways from you? I guess like, and maybe you can even use your kind of framework for microdosing as like how that's changed and adapted over a full season, and how you go into year two as a better professional.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed I'm really glad that I was implementing it with volleyball at Pitt for, like, the last 4 years because that really gave me my foundation
Mm,
to, well, year 1, kinda, like, work through all the clunkiness of, kinda implementing a new system and process. It's never gonna go perfect as much as you want it to. So I'm glad I was able to kinda implement it for multiple years and then seeing a little bit in the pro space, when I was helping with the Steelers and seeing how that would work perfectly in your mind, and I kinda see that more as, like, in football, you may get, like, your traditional strength training day, so you'll still get, like, a long lifting day, like
mm,
60 minutes, let's say, or 45 to 60, and then maybe you have 3, microdosing, so maybe that's a different type of framework. Volleyball, I always saw it as we were always lifting, like, every day before practice, and then we had play Friday, Sunday, so you get a lift on that day as well, and then baseball, I've almost become I call it, like, more fluid or agile microdosing because you're always adapting, like, the best ability is adaptability and availability, so I think, just figuring out it's the one, microdosing model, you have to have the best communication and trust and ability to be agile with that athlete depending on travel stress, what surface you're playing on, what if they're in a slump, you know, and they're like just dreading doing anything at that point? So finding different ways to, you have to have a really strong relationship with them and having different models for that. Maybe it's like you have a upper lower split and you're always getting like a strength type upper and more of a dynamic and same with lower body. Doesn't have to be in that specific order. But yeah, you're getting 4 lifts plus maybe an ISO day and a mobility day. But I think talking with that guy, or maybe it's 4 total body days, you know? And sometimes guys may lift after the game if you're going into an off day. So baseball's really taught me to think on my feet and think very quickly because you gotta be ready to go, and even when you're on the road and maybe you don't have a certain piece of equipment, also just thinking very quickly, of how you can kinda come up with something else or bring something else up, so I think that's something that our head strength coach, Wes, he taught me at a high level to be able to do that, because I saw him, he was just and he came up in the Astros, but learning that from him was super crucial for me.
mm. So what would a typical I guess, session kind of look like in terms of duration or volume? So you mentioned obviously lifting many more times than would be kind of conventional. So what would the structure of a session be like to accommodate the higher frequency?
Yeah, I think for baseball, it's gonna be specific to the guy, but maybe an example of a position player, like, a lot of our games are at 7 PM, so it depends on if the player and this is kinda like I have a checklist of questions of before you implement microdosing, you need to ask yourself these different things, and it came from Checklist Manifesto, like, I got a checklist to have systems and I make sure they're bulletproof, so have a conversation with the player like, hey, are you going to lift before BP or after BP? And if you lift before, like
Mm,
these are the pros, you're further out from game time. If you lift after, we're going to be closer to game time. So maybe you want to do more of a speed type lift if it's within like a couple hours of the game. But if it's 5 or 6 hours from the game, then we can possibly hit a little bit more of like a strength type lift. So I think educating them on like what's going to be best for the time of the day. Or if they're lifting post game going into off day, like that's a great time to get a strength lift in. It just depends on, and we try to be really proactive. Like I'm already looking at our schedule and planning our windows of time to maximize. And we're in December and our season doesn't start for a minute. So trying to get organized, but in MLB, like every guy is different. And I think that's different
mm,
from college, right? Like we have like a lift sheet, like for volleyball, I was at Pitt. It's like, all right, this is the lift. And maybe you have a couple of red shirts or like one injured player, let's say, that's on a return to play. But like in MLB, everyone is doing like their own separate thing. So I think that's why it's like agile or fluid microdosing because, yeah, some guys want upper lower split, some guys want total body. So having all these conversations with them early on of like what works best for you and when do you usually traditionally like what time before the game do you like to lift or do you lift post game? That's very common, and I know NHL and NBA and MLB, and you never see that in college, right? Because you're not allowed to, like, run people after the game
mm.
from an NCAA violation standpoint, so you're never doing that, so, um, yeah, and that's why I think the presentation, I really lay out all of the frameworks and kinda go through all these questions, and it's super helpful, that's why it's, like, 45 to 60 minutes long, of just kinda diving deep into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't realize one, there are so many options to you can lift prior to batting practice, post, you can lift post game. So there's so many opportunities to get in the weight room and to kind of top up as you say. How do you manage and how important is it to have the weight room kind of staffed and to be in there with the guys, or how much autonomy is there of just like, hey, this is our decision tree, we need to get a lift in at some point, that's how we kind of decide what the focus of that's going to be, didn't get it done. Like, where do you kind of fit in with all that, knowing how many guys are on the roster, knowing that kind of unpredictability of schedule, but like what the needs are ultimately?
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I know, like, across Major League Baseball, the big leagues, like, everyone at least has 2 strength coaches, so you have to balance too, you're doing conditioning out on the field with,
Mm,
like, the pitchers,
yeah.
sometimes as well within like, when they're playing catch, maybe you're going out to run people, so, like, you're not only in the weight room, you're out on the field too, so or maybe someone needs, like, some top up running because they didn't get enough high speed running throughout the last series or who knows if they're gonna get playing time anytime soon. So it's definitely you have to be organized, and that's why I go back to kind of the checklist of once you get through spring training and your roster gets a little smaller, and you figure out like, all right, with your however you set up your staff, all right, these are your guys, these are my guys, like kind of take that and run with it. You figure out what their tendencies are and what they need, just like anybody. So I think just that's where you have to have a really good relationship with your player to be like, all right, like before you go on the road and play in Boston and Miami, it's like, all right, this is our game plan. Like this would be the most ideal day to lift. Like clearly we're gonna
Mm,
travel. We're gonna at 2 a.m. I don't know if that's the best day to hit a heavy lift day after crazy travel. So I think just having a plan and looking ahead, and that's why I'm really big on reverse engineering the schedule. And I did that with volleyball too. It's like, all right, we need to peak at this time like for NC2As or the ACC championship. Um, and then same with like MLB. It's like, all right, hey, we know these times in the schedule. Like we have a 3 city trip. Like we got to go to play in Boston, then Miami, then the Yankees. Like that's a lot of time on the road. Like that's probably not the best time to be trying to like max out on lifts. But these are going to be the best days, I think, for us once you figure out like what time you're getting in and all that having conversations early with your players of like, hey, let's try to get it on this and this day when we're on the road. And it's like, all right, bet. So they already know that. In their mind going, I'm like, Steph wants to try to lift on these days. But yeah, you have to be really organized, to say the least.
yeah. And obviously, you mentioned the season's long. There are a lot of different series that can be um, on the road or at home, and that creates a lot of like complication and difficulty in terms of just getting like really effective training and to try to drive some sort of like adaptation or to minimize detraining, did you notice like a pattern of how the athletes kind of, responded to the season in terms of like the testing you did, their training? So there were points where it's like, oh, we're actually kind of making progress or in great shape and it's kind of deep into the season? Or is it kind of a predictable, like, maintain, maybe improve a little bit, and then kind of trend down towards the end? Once you hit the postseason, it's going to be even harder to like stay topped up. So from like a bird's eye view, what was that kind of change like throughout the season in terms of performance and what the guys were capable of?
Yeah, it was interesting with my background coming from college. Like I have a lot of guys that I've trained in the past, like that I got to see on the road now playing in the big leagues, like let's say from Mississippi State or
Oh,
Clemson.
cool.
And I would ask them, I'm like, hey, what's the biggest hurdle you guys had to jump going from like college to this level? And they're like, the pure volume of games.
Mm,
'Cause you go from, like, in college, maybe you're playing, like, 80 or 90, and now you're playing 162
that's
plus the 30
insane.
games in spring training. So, I mean, if you go the whole way to the World Series, you're playing over 200 games within a 365 calendar year. So, I
Wow.
just think just like any sport, right? Like, if you're looking at, like, "Hey, me, Steph, I'm playing college baseball this year, and now I'm in the big leagues next year," when you're, like, almost doubling or you are doubling the amount of games you're playing, like, you have to be strategic of how you kinda approach each day because
Mm,
the volume's gonna be so much and the stress, right? Like, you're trying to, like, make the roster if you're a young guy, so, um, I think just figuring out, like, what's your personal routine, like, what works for me, and making sure like, you can tell, like, you see the guys that have been in the big leagues for a while, like, you can watch them move and you're like, "Man, they have, like, their prep and their routine figured out of what works for them," and then you look at some of the young guys that just got caught up, and you just wanna do everything you can to help them, and I feel for them because I was just working in college, and I'm like, "Man, if I see a lot of these massive differences just being, like, a coach going from
yeah.
college to pro, like, I couldn't imagine the stress of, like, trying to get in the lineup and things like that." So you just try to do again, it goes back to education, like, do everything you
Mm,
can to create, like, different plans, like, "Hey, this is option A, this is option B, option C," like, are you leaning towards which one makes the most sense for you from, like, a meal timing standpoint and training, and does this give you enough time to watch film? And, but that's where it kinda takes me back to your starting pitchers definitely have the best schedule. It's like, I know I'm pitching on this day, and I have all the other
yeah.
days to, like, get my bullpen and my lifts and whatever else, but yeah, if you're coming out of the bullpen to pitch, oh my gosh, like a reliever, that's a tough place to be. They just have a because you never know when you're gonna get called upon depending on, like, the situation in the game and all these things, but yeah, so balancing all those things is definitely a lot of fun and, um, yeah, it just depends on kinda where they're at throughout their career, to answer your question.
No, that's fantastic, and I'm sure very excited going into next season. All the changes and adjustments to try and do an even better job supporting the players. What are some of the adjustments you're going to make? What are some of the changes you're looking to make? What are the things you're going to be thinking more about to say like, okay, this is something I really want to lock in year two?
Yeah, I think, in professional sports, like, everyone's always trying to get better, no matter if you won the World Series, or if you were dead last. We're always all trying to improve. Um, I think for me, now that I've seen a whole entire schedule through, clearly like anybody, like if you're a freshman in college, like I go back to like when I played my first year at West Virginia and I go through my full year, it's just now you know what to expect,
Mm,
expectations and things like that in regards to how the schedule is gonna flow and all that. But I'm always just trying to, like, audit my programs, of what I can do better, but then it also goes into, like, who's your personnel on your roster? Do you have an older roster? Do you have a younger roster? So I think for us at the pro level, you're individualizing all of your programs to your guys, and now I'm super grateful that I have a strong relationship. Like, I built that foundation, like, year 1 to, like, all these guys had no clue who I was. Um, Now I feel like I'm 10 steps ahead of they know who
mm,
I am, they know what to expect, and For me personally, I'm always just trying to be consistent, because the game of baseball is tough. You're failing as a hitter at a high level, compared to any other sport, and that's like success in baseball from a hitting standpoint. So, um, I think I'm always just trying to like stack all the odds in their favor. So trying to educate like, all right, sleep, recovery, from a lifting standpoint, having a really good plan as we're zooming out, reverse engineering. But yeah, just doing everything you can to stack wins. And then hopefully that ends up giving you the product you want on the field.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. I wasn't an Astros fan before this podcast, but I might be now.
Yeah,
Uh,
follow us, please do. We have
uh,
a lot of great guys. And going into year 2, I'm gonna get better at Spanish. That's what's coming
yeah,
up. Stay
that's
tuned.
awesome.
We got a lot of
That's
Spanish speakers in the big leagues, so I need to keep expanding my library here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm sure people who have listened to this podcast now have a much deeper appreciation for, the work you do, what the players go through, the toll it takes, the amount of commitment, dedication, time, to playing at that level and doing it consistently and showing up day after day. So I appreciate you sharing all that with them. If people are interested in learning more and kind of continuing the conversation, besides attending the Power and Strength Summit, where can they go to either contact you, reach out, connect, network, or just kind of keep up with the content that you're putting out?
Yeah, you can just go see me at Coach Steph Grubbs. And then if you want to like email me directly, just sgrubbs@astros.com. It's pretty easy. So one of those two places, I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Yeah. And for everyone who's interested in keeping up with me, it's at Josh_Phil WL on Instagram, Philosophical Weightlifting everywhere else. Thank you all for tuning in to another fantastic episode of the podcast. We will catch you all next time.